So my name is Matt Rosenberg. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at NetNumber. And I'm very excited to be part of this collaborative group to really evolve and discuss some thoughts around where are carriers going with their network evolution. As one of the core network signal vendors in our industry, we have a lot of observations from what we see in the marketplace today, and they span a whole range of different thought processes. And so I'm going to share with the audience today a little bit about what we see in the marketplace, some of the core trends that we're seeing during this transformation process, and some of the pitfalls that will give some guidance to the audience to try and avoid when looking at a modernization effort. So if you bear with me while I move my screen. So where we start with is what I consider a dichotomy of sorts. Carriers are put in a position where they have on one side budgets that are being stressed for legacy network evolution. But yet at the very same time, these networks, these 2G and 3G networks, they still provide significant amount of revenue streams for the carriers, which of course they need to protect. And so this puts carriers in a precarious situation. What do they do? And one of the things that carriers would likely obviously avoid is paralysis by analysis. There comes a point in time when a decision has to be made. But those decisions can come with multiple layers of stress points within the carrier's networks. Some of the vendors today, for example, they've abandoned some of the future development on the SS7 core applications. And instead, they look forward towards silos of services for future applications. Some of the vendors have continued to push the SS7 platform forward, but no new features. So features become discontinued. And as Greg alluded to, some vendors have decided that in their best interest, which is rightly so, they may end of life some of their particular products. And so carriers become faced with a difficult decision and almost left in a bind. And what we're seeing, some of our observations, is how do they take advantage of the time that they have available to them in order to make a decision within their core network. So technology evolution is a part of our industry for the last 20 or 30 years. And in the last 10 to 15 years, it has really been based on tried and tested architecture. That architecture consisted mainly of physical connections, large pieces of hardware, and simple yet effective signaling and routing protocols and policies. As carriers look forward to the demands of their interconnects or their subscribers or just the industry in general, new thought processes that didn't exist 8 to 10 years ago have to be considered. Things like mobility and authentication or security, VoLTE, 5G, a whole range of new areas are being presented to carriers to make a decision of where they put the budget. And this certainly is a daunting task at some regards, but it's also making carriers become in a reactive mode, and they're almost forced to make a decision. However, that decision is not easy. That decision has to be able to protect the brand recognition. It has to be able to continue with ensuring quality of service. And of course, it has to continue, if not increase, revenue generation for the particular carrier. And all at the same time, carriers cannot risk having those heartbeat applications unsupported or disconnected. So in our experience, I realize the polls didn't show this, but certainly in the last 19 years of being in this business, in our experience, what we're seeing today is almost 80% of carriers are undergoing some consideration for transformation and modernization. This doesn't mean they're actually going through it today. But in almost every workshop we get involved in or RFP that we see out there, there is some level of transformation being requested. And that transformation is not necessarily about the application itself, but it's about other things around that, which I'll discuss in a minute. And as part of this preparation, as part of this new look, carriers seek budget for new evolutions within the networks, within the new services around heightened security, around evolving cloud native or NFV products, and obviously ensuring that the SS7 services are carried forward. And that's probably none more prevalent than the STP as a particular application within the core network. So where does that leave us? Well, based upon some of the feedback we've seen, we're going to show you some data points here that have anonymized a whole bunch of data we've collected, where we see the typical trends within the RFPs when we get asked about responding with new technology and new services. However, there is certainly an element of fear, and that fear is emanated with a very simple word called change. I mean, it's a simple word. It has 6 letters, but that word itself can install fear in the hearts of the people responsible for running networks. And the fear is not so much the actual change itself, but it's about introducing something new. And new is always a daunting situation. But history has shown that is an elemental part of growth. And Charles Darwin said it very appropriately a couple hundred years ago, that it's not the strongest of species that are going to survive, nor is it necessarily the most intelligent that's going to survive. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. And that is really true in our industry. We see change happen in certain periods along the way where every 5 to 8 years technology shifts within our particular industry. And we see early adopters accept that change, and then we see that proliferated across the globe over some period of time. But the common thread is very, very true, that change does happen. And in order to embrace the change for the future, carriers cannot be afraid of that. And we are seeing elements of that. We do see many carriers open to change, and I think that's accelerating at a pace faster than it was 10 years ago. And what are really carriers looking for? They're looking for not repeating the past in the way it was done before. And I'm referring to the build out of the architecture. So in this transformation, carriers seek a better future-proof option for their investments into the core network technology. Many of the carriers have realized that just by adding another silo service into the signaling core, it just creates continued signaling chaos, and it really doesn't achieve factors of efficiency that propel them towards looking for the future. The cost of losing signaling due to failed technology is just unacceptable in a carrier's network, and rightly so. So in order for carriers to consider how they get budgets appropriated and looking forward to investing in new solutions, it really has to foster agility, has to foster better time to market, simpler vendor management, and it really has to look at lowering the operating costs in order to get the mind share to move that bar forward with evolution in the carrier's networks. So the next slide here is going to describe 6 real-world elements that we see out of RFPs that tend to be a common theme across many of them. The first is new deployment and architecture. And what I refer to here is not necessarily the replacement of a particular application, but it's the surrounding elements that encapsulate a new network that are important in the forward-looking vision. Coupled to that and underpinning that are powerful security solutions. It's never been more evident in our history than today, where security changes and it changes fast. And given the nature of the world we live in, the request for new security solutions that are coupled with the new architecture, that are then delivered with new applications, seem to be a very common theme that we see in many of our RFPs. And of course, learning from the past, as they go through this RFP process and as budgets become available, it must make sure that it reduces inefficiencies of the signaling core that historically we lived with. And that's not bad, by the way. Historically, when we built networks, it was built with the technology at the time. And of course, as natural progression goes forward, as vendors and technology changes, those things become more realized and rationalized to be better. And so naturally, when carriers are asking for new environments and new evolutions of technology, it must bring forward the fixes required in making the business and making the core network more efficient. And that leads to an element of faster time to market. As the move towards software is prevalent, and I'm sure everyone on this call is experiencing that in either their personal lives or professional lives, businesses are required to react quicker. Businesses are required to put something into the market that can generate revenue at a pace faster than ever before. And so the new technology that carriers are asking for must encapsulate this concept. And removing the concept of these signaling silos of service and moving more towards bundled solutions is an important proposition in order to realize the efficiencies gained by making such investments. And finally, without the ability to extract real-time data and then analyze that data to make a business decision quicker, carriers will struggle to find the right investment, the right budget pillars in order to move that technology post forward. So no question in our minds, one of the most common themes across all of our RFPs is having the access with the platform to provide real-time data and analytics across multiple facets of the architecture. So when we look at what would be an example of a modernized solution, because we use that word a lot, and that word can be nebulous, it can be very broad, but when we look at the signaling network, we look at the core network, the heartbeat of a carrier's technology, a modernized solution really refers to a platform, a flexible open API platform that looks at all the different services across multiple generations of technology, that takes protocols and harmonizes them into one core platform. It takes data and distributes that data in real time across a mesh network, and then able to extract that data to affect real-time services is an elemental movement that we see in a lot of carriers across all regions when they look at a modernized solution. And unless that particular solution is going to help a carrier build new value-added services, new streams of revenue, or protect existing streams, it is harder for carriers to rationalize where those budgets get appropriated. And so if I summarize 4 focus areas within these RFPs, the first would be a multi-app platform. So no longer do we see just the requirement for one particular application. Of course, RFPs still go out and ask that, but the majority of the RFPs are looking for a broader solution. If I'm going to ask for an STP, let me combine it with something else. In addition, taking those off-the-shelf applications and bringing them into a refresh into the network must be able to carry forward customer-specific use cases. And this is typically seen in the OSS BSS layer, where historic ways of provisioning or managing services have to be also carried forward in order for the new platform play to be efficient into the carrier's network. Coupled with the new architectural capabilities, I am sure we've all seen areas where technology is moving into NFV, containers, mesh networks, AI. These are all parts of an overall request for technology refreshes that we see in a lot of our RFPs and requests from customers for workshops. And of course, all of that must lead to a future where 5G is considered. Carriers are willing to consider the investments to carry legacy forward, protect revenue streams, modernize the network to increase efficiencies, but it has to help them get to beyond. And in truth, I don't know if there's ever a final point in network modernization, because we've been doing this for 30 years. And the majority of carriers, the majority of people who operate carriers go through different cycles of time where new technology is invented, is innovated, and that then proliferates across how carriers move the technology post forward. But I think the message here is, as we see the focus areas within the RFPs, never more than today do we see the focus on how do I get to beyond. So where we fit in the picture as a core signaling vendor is, over the last 19 years, we've built a range of products, whether that be platform, whether that be data, or bundled solutions and services, where we've seen a large number of carriers across the globe adopt this mindset. Today, we have well over 200 customers across the globe that have deployed our technology in a wide range of solutions, and those solutions are very specific to them. And so whether that's replacing technology, whether that's bundling solutions, or using data to achieve a particular result, we have the privilege to offer services to these customers, to our customers, to our family of customers, and then learn from them as they learn from us. Our platform, called Titan, offers carriers a wide range of innovation, whether that be through lowering the cost of bringing legacy forward, whether that is harmonizing both legacy and new protocols to create access to centralized data in a unified fashion. It also bridges the gap that carriers are eventually going to make and continue to make going forward into the digital world. If you look at the trends where hardware sales have fallen down to virtually nothing, and carriers are deploying new solutions, whether that be in the OSS BSS space, whether that be in the customer services and demand space or the core network space, it is moving to a software world, and it's moved there already. Now, software world doesn't mean it's in a cloud per se, but it means it is hardware independent, and it's using technology that is really akin and moving towards web-based technology, these meshed networks, these one-touch button applications. And of course, all of that is underpinned and almost required to be able to deliver real-time analytics across all of these domains in such a way where carriers can react and build new services or protect the networks quicker than ever before. NetNumber provides a wide range of services. On the network side, on the platform side, is a deep portfolio of domain solutions across signaling security, subscriber data management, authentication and policy, private LTE, etc. We couple and marry those with data services. It is an extremely important part of the vision that carriers must have going forward, is not just to refresh the core of the application, but refresh how they use data and the incorporation of data in order to make a better secure network, in order to make better effective decisions in a real-time basis. And of course, surrounding all of these are security solutions. We have a wide range of security solutions that are used to augment and propel networks into the next domain to handle the rich domains of mobility and authentication and machine-to-machine. We also provide real-time services around EMS, VNFMs, and reporting and analytics. As that vision is realized by more and more carriers, and clearly this is a phased approach. No carrier is going to start putting multiple applications overnight onto a platform. They're going to slowly migrate that across as needs demand. But the vision that carriers are working towards is, again, one of a web-based architecture, one where they can move quickly, release themselves from demands of hardware limitations and capacities, go into the cloud, go into cloud native, automated testing, containerized upgrades with their products. And this is envision concept moving towards a centralized function of the core that then interoperates with things like the EPC, RAN, etc. So this particular evolution can be seen through a couple different initiatives where we see rationalization happening in the carrier's RFP considerations. As one example is the HSS. We get involved a lot with replacing existing legacy HSSs with our HSS. And typically we see the request is not just for an HSS, but as a combined set of functions and applications in the subscriber data management domains. And that typically plays itself out as carriers look to replace the existing technology they have and then augment it and take advantage of the timing to incorporate new technologies and new services for additional applications within the network. We also see that on the security side. So as carriers look to secure and quickly secure the SS7 signaling network, it's clear to them that if they're going to take the approach to make one fix, it is a little bit easier than to look at it holistically as potentially a diameter, an SS7, and a real-time data bundled set of services. And the SS7 network, clearly around the STP, where a lot of stress points are happening across the globe from our observation points. We see carriers asking for a refresh of the STP, but in doing so, they ask for potentially a bundled solution where they're almost free to roam within this signaling domain. So carriers are looking for solutions where they could purchase an application or a bundled solution that provides connectivity and access to new technologies in STP and the DSC and SS7 without being encumbered by antiquated licensing models or traffic licensing models there as well. And all of that connects into the OSS BSS layer in a seamless fashion. In order for any of this to work in the architectural vision that carriers have, it has to really minimize the impact to the OSS/BSS layer. And so change becomes an easy concept instead of a dreaded concept where it is today in many, many situations. So I will leave you with 5 key takeaways. The first key takeaway is this move towards modernization, it is underway. Some carriers will do it quickly, some carriers will do it slowly, some carriers may struggle, some carriers may not. But the move towards a modernization is taking place across many facets of the organizations. And this move includes many things like a move to agile in the business, not just the actual development or the network assets themselves. This is actually driving a, a feeling where carriers are almost forced to make a decision. And I know it's hard, and we see that across the industry, but most of the carriers are in some fashion, they're in some situation of a decision process. And that doesn't necessarily mean the core network. Again, things take time and things are planned according to business requirements and business demands. So at some level within a carrier's business, whether that be the core signaling network, whether that be the RAN, the EPC, or just transformation itself, decisions are being forced to be made, and they're being forced to be made with a level of urgency. And so these decisions are then placed into a set of tough areas of where do you put that budget investment. That budget investment has to be realized with a either increase in revenue or a fix of a problem or a building of a new set of services. And so it's a harder decision for carriers as they go forward. And for sure, what we see from our vantage point as a core signaling network provider is carriers looking to, when they make that decision, looking towards putting those budgets into a powerful platform that is truly taking legacy services and protecting those revenue streams, putting them into a future-proof environment and allowing new services to be created in a much quicker time to market. And finally, that decision has never been more urgent than it is today. We get asked to travel all across the globe in many different workshops about how can carriers transform their signaling network to meet the demands of their consumers, to hit the demands of the new technology that's being almost forced at some levels to be undertaken within a carrier. And more importantly, and most importantly, to provide the same level of trusted service that carriers have provided for many years to their carriers in an uninterrupted fashion. So with that said, I thank you for attending. I hope that this has given some insights to the audience about our observation points as a true core network provider, where we see refresh happening at a faster pace than ever before in the move towards modernization, and where SS7 truly is one of the core elements that carriers must make a decision on and must make it in an urgent fashion. So thank you very much for your time.